how to play Polling Right, the print and play game about the 2024 UK election. I'm Sam, the designer of Samfire Games. So, in Polling Right 2024, you play a political party. And just like a real party, you're trying to win over voters in order to win seats in Parliament. To win voters, you need to complete policies, slogans, and political tactics on the party sheet, using the numbers on these two dice. To win a constituency, you'll need to win a plurality of voters, so that's more than any other player. Once enough constituencies in the game have been won, the game will end with at least one party winning. I'll explain the exact victory conditions at the end of this video. You'll need to print out the constituency map and a player party sheet for each player. Every game should have Labour and Conservatives in it, unless you're using solo bot to play one or both of those players, and then you can use some of the other parties. If you've got 3 or more players, you can bring in the smaller parties that way as well. If you do bring in the smaller parties, like the SNP, each of them bring in their own additional constituencies, so just cut those off the bottom of the party sheet and place them in appropriate geographical place. So up in the north of the Isles for the SNP there, for the Scottish Nationals. Then you'll need 2 dice and pen or pencil for each player, ideally in their party colour. I generally recommend that so that you can easily see what's going on the map in terms of who's got majority where. If someone's playing the Green Party, you'll also need to have a green die to hand as well. First of all, choose who's the leading player. I suggest who most recently voted. That player rolls a dice. You don't need to use a dice tower like me, that's just for my fun. All players are going to use those dice to fill in their party sheets. That'll be familiar to you if you've ever played a roll and write game. But before you do that, you need to do 2 things on the map. First, work out the difference between these dice. We've got a 4 and a 5. The difference, therefore, is 1. Now, that's an odd number, so we'll treat it as negative. If it was an even number, it would be positive. So, starting at the 0 space on your first turn, you'll go along 1 and, in this case, down 1. The economy is going down. Now, the second thing we'll do is add the numbers up. Yeah, it's a 9. So that means TV debates is triggered. So we look for the sum of the dice on this set of headlines. And in this case, we mark off the first portion of the TV debates. If at this point all 4 of those have been ticked off under TV debates, then whoever had the highest slogan would immediately win 2 voters of any kind. We'll come back to how you claim voters. Simultaneously, all players will use these 2 dice values to complete sections of their party sheets. If you're feeling particularly competitive or secretive, you could do this in turn order, clockwise from the leading player. You'll see why that matters when we get to claiming voters. So, the party sheet. Take a look at it now. Notice, and this is important, that there are 2 sections, the party section and the campaign section. You're going to take either die value and use it to complete something in the party section, and you're going to use the other die to complete something in the campaign section. which you'll do by drawing on it. The Labour Party. So let me walk you through it. If you want to, you can follow along and do exactly as I say now. I'll complete the Labour and Conservative party sheets in this example. So for Labour, we've got a 4 and a 5. So the 5 is an odd number. I'm going to use it up here to fill in "my dad was a toolmaker," which is Keir Starmer's catchphrase to some extent. And then I'm going to use the 4, the other die, down in the campaign section, and it's an even number, so I can put it in this canvassing section here, which is an E for even. All of these tracks need to be completed from left to right. So I wouldn't have been able to just fill in that odd number there with the 5, for example. Also, and I'll just emphasize again, you have to fill 1 in here, 1 up there. Now, I'm ready to claim voters. So, my dad is a toolmaker. The first space on that, you'll notice, doesn't have anything underneath it. It doesn't actually get me any bonuses yet. Later on, I'm hoping to get a blue collar and a Conservative voter through saying that phrase again and again and again. Now, canvassing, however, does get me a voter. In this case, a 2019 Labour voter. So I will look at the constituency map and I'll have a look and see that Stockton North is where I have a starting voter, and I think I'm going to double down on that. So I get a Labour voter. I'm going to go for the pensioner because it's quite difficult for Labour to get pensioners compared to the Conservatives. The Conservatives. Now, over to the Tories. The first thing you'll notice is that at the top of the party section for the Conservatives, you've got your 3 leaders: Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, and Rishi Sunak. Now, every turn the Conservatives have to choose one of their die values that they're going to allocate to the party section, and they have to use it on their current leader, up until the point when they no longer can do that. So on a future turn, let's say this time I fill in the 5 on any voter. On a future turn, if we didn't roll any odd numbers, then Boris Johnson would resign, and I would fill in that number that I was going to put there under Liz Truss. Now, when Liz Truss inevitably collapses her government, we would go straight to Rishi Sunak. And only then would we be able to start completing the rest of the party section, including, for example, economic credibility. So I filled in the 5 on Boris Johnson's track, and I'm going to take the 4 and use it for the Tory newspapers. That'll be useful later. Now, the any voter that I've gained for Boris Johnson, I could take it anywhere at all, but I'm going to fill it in Stockton North. Take a young voter there while I still can. So now, both players have used the same dice values. The turn is over, and the next player becomes the leading player. They'll roll the dice, they'll fill in the economy track and the headlines, and we'll keep going until somebody wins. There are 11 voters in every constituency, so 6 voters will always give you an overall majority. In this case, the Conservatives have won Stockton North. They fill in the winner's rosette. Now, with 3 or more players, this will get a bit more complicated. In this case, you need a plurality of voters, or you can win with a plurality of voters. that is, more than any other player. So in this case, the SNP with their little black logo have got 5 voters, the Conservatives have got 4, Labour have got 2. That means with the 5 voters, the SNP have won. That might be something like 45% of the vote, like in a real election. If more than one player is tied for the most voters in a constituency, then the incumbent has an advantage. So in the case of Moray West, Nairn and Strathspey, the SNP is the first incumbent there, who won it last time, and the Conservatives were second. So the SNP would win again in a tie there against the Conservatives, and the Conservatives would win against Labour or another third party. If neither are listed there, then you'll have to randomise it. Toss a coin. That's how it's done in a real election. In a 2-player game, we'll keep rolling dice, advancing tracks, claiming voters and winning seats until one player has won a majority of the constituencies. That means 3 out of the 5 on a 2-player game. That player wins, the other player loses. Simple. I'll take you through the various win conditions for 3 or more players at the end of this video. One last thing to explain about the party sheets. They're all different, but all of them have the Amplify icon. That's the little megaphone. You'll find it under the donations or the major donors tracks, and also next to various policies. This icon represents you using the funds from donations to promote the policies you've already completed. So, once you've filled in the 3rd space of the donations track for Labour or the major donors track for the Conservatives, you'll unlock the first Amplify icon. With a dashed line around it, just circle that to show it's unlocked. Now, you can immediately, or at any point on a later turn when you are claiming voters, choose to use that. To do that, choose a policy that's already been completed. So let's say cutting national insurance. I'd already completed that, and I got a blue collar voter for it earlier on. Now, I want to use my Amplify icon. If I cross off that, the one on the donations track, and cross off the icon on cut national insurance, and now I get the benefit of that policy again. So I get to claim another blue collar voter. You can use that to save up and potentially get a load of voters all at once. Take your opponent by surprise. When you have 3 more players in this game, the victory conditions change. Firstly, there are more seats to win, so we'll constitute some majority changes, but more importantly, at this player count, more than one player can win, and any player who gets 7 or more victory points will win the game. Now, every player is competing for the possibility of getting an overall majority. Some players are better, some parties are better at that than others. That will give them 7 victory points, which is enough to win. Otherwise, they will become the largest party. Only one player can get that, and only if they have more seats than any other player. That is 6 victory points. If they are tied for the largest party, then both parties get 4 victory points. Or if they have the second most seats, they get 3 points. Any number of parties can get those 3 points. Now, the Conservatives and Labour are basically having a grudge match. They gain a victory point if they have more constituencies than the other. If you work that out, that means that there won't be a situation where both Labour and Conservative win. One has to lose. Next, we look at, say, the Liberal Democrats. They get 3 victory points in addition to whatever they got for, say, maybe they got second most seats, which would be 3 victory points. They would also get 3 victory points if they got the most seats in the southwest. So each constituency has a little label on it, which might be a region or a type of seat. They can also get 3 victory points if they get the most seats in the southeast as well. Then Reform UK, essentially they chase the Conservatives round. They get 1 victory point for each constituency where they have more voters than the Conservatives, where the Conservatives also have a voter. They also get 2 victory points if they win Clacton, because that's Nigel Farage's seat that he's trying to get. The Green Party, their victory condition is that they multiply the number of seats they've won by the number of climate policies that all players have completed. So that's getting to the end of the climate policy track. You then deduct victory points for the number of players who have not completed their climate policies. Then we have the SNP and Plaid Cymru, who have kind of similar conditions. Plaid gain a victory point for each voter in the constituency in Wales with the least Plaid Cymru voters, so they end up spreading theirs out. The SNP, they gain 1 victory point for each constituency they've won, and they always can only claim in Scotland. They also gain 4 victory points if they have won more than 50% of all the voters in Scotland. So, have fun working out how to win with those, and I hope you really enjoy Polling Rights. I've been Sam Fire Games, and Polling Rights on Kickstarter right now. Hope you enjoy it.